Sonnet 116. Let me not to the marriage of true minds. This is a sonnet, which instantly you should be thinking, well, if it's a sonnet, it's going to have 14 lines to it, obviously, which it does. And being an English sonnet, it should have the following rhyme scheme. We see mind, love, finds, remove. Remove being a half rhyme, but in Shakespeare's time would have possibly been more of pronounced more possibly remove rather than remove. Okay, so we have A, B, A, B. Mark doesn't rhyme with anything there, so we go C, D, C, D. As obviously mark rhymes with bark and shaken rhymes with taken. We've got cheeks doesn't rhyme with anything else here, so we go E, F, E, F. Roughly speaking, come and doom, come and dom kind of rhyme, and weeks and cheeks obviously. And then finally, let's make that clear, F. We have the rhyming couplet at the end, GG. So as it's an A, B, C, D, C, D, E, F, G, G rhyme scheme, we know it is therefore a distinctly English sonnet as opposed to being an Italian sonnet or anything else like that. The poem really is quite simple, the sonnet. It's obviously a love poem. And in it, Shakespeare, or the speaker, which we should perhaps say, really gives across a definitive idea of what love is and what love is not. And he finishes it off with an interesting rhyming couplet at the end that basically says that if he's wrong about this, then nobody's ever loved before. Let's divide it into quatrains, shall we? Quatrain being 4 lines. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oops, sorry there. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then obviously we've got the couplet at the end there. What I've done here for you as well is I've added the paraphrased version. So this here is the original, well, the modern day English, if you like, original version of Sonnet 116. And over here is a paraphrased version, and that's just putting it in slightly more, slightly easier vocabulary for you, okay? If we look, roughly speaking, at this first quatrain here, these first 4 lines, it very much tells us what love is not. Love is not changeable, okay? The second quatrain then goes and tells us what it is, the idea of it being a fixed guiding star, unshaken by tempests and rough winds. And the third quatrain specifically says what it is not. It is not time's fool. It is not subject to change just as the years go on and things like that. And the final rhyming couplet really announces the speaker's certainty. It makes it very clear to the reader, to the audience, what the speaker believes and how certain they are in their idea. It's not so much that this is one of Shakespeare's most creative, out there, incredibly written sonnets or poems or piece of writing. The vocabulary really is quite simple. It's mostly monosyllabic. It's mostly one-word syllables. It's not the most challenging of text, so to speak, but rather it's his emotional conviction, how certain he is in love, which is what makes it such a great poem. And as I said, it does relatively strictly follow the English sonnet rhyme scheme and everything else like that. So let's just get into it and just see exactly what Shakey is telling us. So he says, let me not to the marriage of true minds admit impediments, okay? And basically, as it says in the paraphrase there, it's essentially saying, you know, there's no reasons why two true-minded, like-minded people should not be married together. It says, love is not love, which changes when it finds change in circumstances. So love is constant. Love is not something which changes. Love is not something that changes when you fancy somebody else, you fall out of love with somebody, with the person you're in love with. Well, you were never in love with that person in the first place, Shakespeare is saying. Love is not changeable. Once you fall in love, that's it. It's not changeable, it's not malleable. It's not corruptible either, he goes on to tell us, because it tells us, or bends with the remover to remove. And it's basically suggesting that Love is rigid, it's solid, and it doesn't bend. It doesn't get snapped. It doesn't bend either way. Even when somebody, a lover, is unfaithful to the other one, Shakespeare's arguing if you're in love, you're in love. Your love can overcome any problems that you might experience. He then really, with real declaration, says, "Oh no!" So in the first quatrain, he's told us what love is not. It's not changeable, and he's now going to tell us what love is. He says, so he's saying it's not. Don't let me. I'm not going to give you any reasons why, or there are no reasons why two people who love each other of true mind, who really love each other, should ever not be together. Love is constant. Love does not change. And he goes on and tells us what it is. Really clearly is. He's told us what it's not. Now it's time to know what it is. He says, "Oh no. It is an ever-fixed mark that looks on tempests and is never shaken." It's almost like a guiding light, a shining light, like from a lighthouse that shines out over the ocean. It doesn't matter how rough, how dangerous, how violent the sea, the tempest is. The lighthouse remains the same. The lighthouse, a bit like love, is unshakable. The light doesn't change. Whilst the sea and the waves may change, the lighthouse, the light itself, does not change. He says it's an ever-fixed mark that looks on tempests and is never shaken. Further on, develops this idea. He tells us, "It is the star to every wandering bark, whose worth's unknown, although his height be taken." And it's essentially saying it's the North Star. Love is the North Star. It's the brightest, most visible star in the entire in the sky. And it is that star which typically people in Shakespeare's time and before would use to guide them in the nautical adventures when they're crossing the oceans and things like that. They would use the North Star to really be a marker, a bit like, it's developing this extended metaphor of love being a shining light like a lighthouse. He's now comparing it to a guiding star. Either way, whether it be love be the lighthouse or it be the star, love guides us. Love is constant. Love is always there. That's what Shakespeare is trying to get across with these word choices. Now, obviously, it's for you to go in and analyse these word choices in more depth to get your A's and B's and so on. And he said it's a star to every wandering ship, if you like, every lost ship, basically, whose worth's unknown, although its height be taken, whose value cannot be calculated, although its altitude can be measured. Quite simply so. Back in Shakespeare's day, they had no idea what the elements were within stars. They had no idea what stars were made of. However, they were able to roughly estimate the distance from Earth, or so they saw at the time, which is why its altitude can be measured, but its value cannot be calculated. Love's value cannot be calculated. You can measure it with your affection for how you feel about your lover, but it can't actually be measured. It's a bit like Shylock's pound of flesh in Merchant of Venice. It can't be measured. There's no way to measure it. In this third quatrain now, he now goes on to really specifically, for the first time, really specifically tell us what it is not. Okay, so the first quatrain tells us what it's not. In the second quatrain, the second 4 lines, he tells us what it is. And in this final quatrain, this final 4 lines before the couplet at the end, he is really, really specific. He tells us, love is not time's fool, okay? And by that, what it's really meaning is it's not at the mercy of time. Love is eternal. I'm about to develop it and even suggest that Shakespeare saying that love continues and develops over time, even after death. But he says that love is not the fool of time. It's not time's fool. And although he concedes, he admits, though rosy lips and cheeks within his bending sickle's compass come. An incredible couple of lines there. Love's not time's fool. Though rosy lips and cheeks within his bending sickle's compass come. Listen to the rhythm of that. It's really, really quite incredible use of alliteration as well. Obviously, there's assonance in there. Compass, come. There's alliteration within the C. There's assonance on the O's there. And it's really the idea. The sickle is the device. Now, I am an amazing artist, as anybody who I teach will tell you. And a sickle is this thing. Oh, yeah. Great artwork, Mr. Gibb. Oh, that is lovely stuff. Basically, it's a thing that traditionally would be used to cut crops and things like that. But traditionally, the Grim Reaper would always carry with them. That's really is a bad drawing. It's really just the idea of the sickle there, and it's got a sharp metal bit there, and it's always pictured death, as is symbolised by the Grim Reaper. Always carries a sickle there. And Shakespeare admits that, you know, through your rosy lips and cheeks within his bending sickle's compass come. He's admitting that, you know, whilst time won't affect love, time will affect your looks, you know. The young, beautiful man or woman that you married or you were with, in time, yes, they will lose their looks. They're not always going to be beautiful. They're not always going to be immortal. They're not always going to be gorgeous. Again, compare this with Sonnet 18, where shall I compare thee to a summer's day, when his main argument is basically, actually, you don't have to have babies to carry on your beauty. As long as I write it in this poem, as long as people read it, your beauty will be immortal, almost like a photograph. And here, he's really, you know, 98 poems later, he's really saying, you know, he's admitting, yeah, okay, your looks will suffer in age. You won't be as good looking when you're 90 as you are when you were 20. But, however, love does not change. Love's not time's fool, though rosy lips and cheeks within his bending sickle's compass come. Love alters not with his brief hours and weeks, but bears it out even to the edge of doom. He's telling us that, sorry, I'll start on the line before, it alters not, it doesn't change in a few hours and weeks and years. This love doesn't change. True love is true love, and it lasts forever, and it bears it out even to the edge of doom. And there's a couple of ways you can read that. I'd argue that it's saying that it's past the edge of doom, even on doomsday. Even, you know, it's the idea right up until doomsday that love will remain and it will remain constant. Perhaps it's suggesting after death that love will also continue to be there and to almost grow. And then we finally get an incredibly arrogant and cocksure final rhyming couplet here. Very interesting. And he says, Mr. Shakespeare, he says, if this be error and upon me proved, I never writ, nor no man ever loved. Or if you like, if this be error and upon me proved, I never writ, nor no man ever loved. If I am proved wrong, if my thoughts about what love is, if in these 12 preceding lines that I have written, I have laid out very clearly what love is not in the first quatrain, what love is in the second quatrain, and just to reaffirm, just to make sure I'm really clear, in the third quatrain, he again tells us what love most definitely is not. It is not shiftable, it's not malleable, time doesn't alter it, time has nothing to do with it. It's not about, you know, if somebody cheats on somebody else, that doesn't alter it. Love is eternal. If you love somebody and it is true love, that's what love is. And he says, but if I'm wrong about this, and you can prove me wrong, then you know what? I never wrote anything down. Now by this time Shakespeare is a well-known playwright and poet. He's well known throughout the land, really. He's being really quite cocky, very tongue-in-cheek, but he's saying, look, if I'm wrong, then look, that means I've never written anything before. Disregard everything I've written before. In fact, make it as if I wasn't ever even a writer. So he's so sure about this is what love is, and it is not. He's saying, if I'm wrong, then forget anything I've ever written. But he also adds on a very clever conceit, nor no man ever loved. He's saying, you know, if what I'm saying isn't true, then I've never been a writer, but therefore no man has ever been in love before. This is what love is. If I'm wrong, then you know, this is exactly what love is. If I'm wrong about that, then I'll take it. I'm wrong about it, but no man has ever been truly in love before. That's really the argument that he's trying to hit here. Now, I've added these footnotes for you here, and I've added the paraphrasing for you as well. I very quickly just want to go in and have a wee look here at, obviously we know it's written in iambic pentameter. We can show it. So iambic pentameter obviously being unstressed followed by a stressed syllable. So let me not to the marriage of true mind. Sorry, it's not really coming out very clearly. But you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 there. Unstressed, stressed, unstressed, stressed. So we know it is written in iambic pentameter. Now, Why has Shakespeare done this? Well, he always writes iambic pentameter, or usually writes iambic pentameter when he's writing a sonnet, obviously. More importantly, though, what he's really trying to say by using the English sonnet, not an Italian sonnet, like love, we were told in the Times where it came from, really. An English sonnet, a distinctly English sonnet with the A, B, A, B, C, D, C, D, E, F, E, F, G, G rhyme scheme, using iambic pentameter as well. And he's so sure about it. I'm going to argue the reason that he uses this rhythm, feet and meter, the reason that he uses this structure of the sonnet is to really emphasise just how tight and how sure he is about what love is and what love is not. He's really almost pretending to be the expert here. And just like he is certain about what love is, even though in the final rhyming couplet he shows a bit of uncertainty, but we know that he's certain in what he thinks. Just like that certainty, it's used a very certain rhyme scheme and use of rhythm and meter as well. So obviously full of as well enjambment, caesura and so on. Let's have a wee look here up at the top line. Let me not to the marriage of true minds admit impediments, okay? Admit impediments is let me not allow anything to go against it. And so the reason he's really quite cleverly used this line by itself, he's used enjambment here to separate it, but he's not used any punctuation, so that this idea of impediments is not in the same line. It's not in the same line as this idea of a marriage of true minds. So let me not to marriage of true minds admit impediments. He's used caesura there obviously to take a pause to allow us to think and reflect about what's being said. He goes on to tell us, love is not love which alters when it alteration finds, or bends with the remover to remove. Oh no! And again, this use of caesura there, the punctuation in the middle of a line, it's really making it clear to us this is not what it is. He's very sure. And he tells us, it's an ever-fixed mark that looks on tempests and is never shaken. It is a star to every wandering bark, whose worth unknown, although its height be taken. Love's not time's fool, though rosy lips and cheeks within his bending sickle's compass come. Love alters not with this brief hours and weeks, but bears it out even to the edge of doom. And as I said, the final conceit, if this be error and upon me proved, I never writ nor man ever loved. Okay? Really, there's not a lot, but for example, the use of caesura there could absolutely be taken that it's really trying to... It's creating time, although it's saying love is not time's fool. By the clever use of the caesura, the comma, it is forcing us to take time, take a pause within the line. So there's a little bit of irony going on there. Use that to help develop your own analysis as you wish as well. And the enjambment, for example, let me just erase a few things. The enjambment here, look at this first quatrain. It's all enjambment, okay? And it's almost as if that he's trying to give the idea that love is, well, that love is continuous. Love is non-stop. Love doesn't just stop. And it's almost like he's telling us what love is not here. And he's also, ironically enough, he is showing us that love is constant through the use of enjambment. And it's just to back up his point even more. Now, not the easiest of poems on the surface of things, but the ideas within it are really quite easy, as I've gone on and explained. The main things you need to know is obviously a sonnet, an English sonnet, 14 lines, A, B, A, B, C, D, C, D, E, F, E, F, G, G, rhyme scheme, iambic pentameter, and it's dealing with the idea of what love actually is. First quatrain tells us what it is not. Second quatrain tells us what it is. Third quatrain tells us again what it definitely is not. And the final couplet is an arrogant little salute to himself, almost, to tell us that he knows what love is, and if he's proved wrong, then everything in the world almost is wrong. He's never written and no man's ever loved. Go through it, make sure you understand it, use a paraphrase section to make sure that you understand what is being said, but also make sure for your examination that you have this quotes from this poem and you're able to discuss the word choice used. Now, a lot of this vocabulary is quite difficult vocabulary, therefore it is a dictionary, okay? So use a dictionary to work out the word choice. If you don't know what a word means, make sure that you have a look online or in a physical old school dictionary and find out what it means. It's different connotations, and think about how that then fits into the poem and the ideas. As I said to you, it's an English sonnet. It's got an A, B, C, D, E, F, G, G rhyme scheme. It's obviously 14 lines, okay? And the tone is of certainty. He really is sure, he is absolutely sure about what he's saying and the point he wants to make. There is absolutely no doubt about it, about what he feels love is and what love means. It's a certain tone that is put throughout it. Again, go through it, read it to yourself, think about what other types of poem may be being explored within this within the poem. But the tone really is that of certainty, of you could even argue it's of self-assuredness. He's very self-assured. He is certain of what he's saying, and he's certain about, he knows and he has experienced love and he knows what it's about and what it's like. As always, use this screencast as a starting point and make sure you develop your own ideas and come up with your own ideas, your own original ideas with which to develop them with. But ultimately, remember, you must have quotes and then analyse the word choice, the poetic technique, and then the denotation and the connotation, the literal meaning of what is being said and what is therefore being suggested by it.